Welcome to the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Nina Addeo, a social media marketing expert specializing in the wedding industry. Each week, we'll explore the strategies, stories, and insider tips that help wedding professionals thrive. You'll hear solo episodes filled with actual advice for social media and inspiring conversations with esteemed wedding industry guests. Thank you for tuning in and letting this podcast be a part of your day. Let's get started. Welcome, guys. Welcome back to the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast. I am so glad to have you here. At the time of filming this, we're getting ready for Valentine's Day. This will probably air around then. So we're getting ready to go into that transition as we go from engagement season to booking season and then to wedding season. So I am exhausted because for me, as somebody on the marketing side of the wedding industry, engagement season is very, very busy because that's when everybody wants to have a lot of their marketing efforts go forward. So I am just waiting till Valentine's Day. That's become like my new Christmas, my new end of the year for me holiday is Valentine's Day. But as we go into booking season, we have a really just juicy, important topic today that we're going to be doing with Elizabeth Shiels, co-founder of Rock Paper Coin. So those of you who have been part of this little podcast from the beginning, when I was just doing this on my own, afraid to have guests, right? And now we have one of the founders of Rock Paper Coin on. How cool is that? But Elizabeth is going to be talking to us about the conversion factor, how to turn inquiries into bookings. Now, do you say inquiries or inquiries? Both sound cool, but I say inquiries. And this is really important. For my job as a social media manager, my job is to get people to your website or to your sales funnel. So now what Elizabeth is going to be talking about is that next phase, how to get those inquiries into booked couples. Let me tell you a lot about Elizabeth. So Elizabeth is the co-founder of Rock Paper Coin. And even though she's now in tech, that's not how she started. Like all of us wedding pros, right? We start in the wedding industry, and she was leading a team of wedding planners out of Seattle. It was through these decades of experience that she realizes there were some challenges for planning. Specifically, she saw a lack of vendor collaboration over client management. So Elizabeth, with her sister-in-law Nora, said, and I love that. I have many sisters and sisters-in-law, so I love that. They brought together the first ever software for event planners, couples, and vendors that would be in one system for managing contracts, paying invoices, and sharing documents. So she went from the shift from software development from wedding planning, and she was able to see what technology for business is out there, but how underused it has been until now in the wedding industry. You may have seen Elizabeth before. She's a speaker. She's been at Wedding MBA, participated in WIPA events and more. But now we're going to get to talk to her on the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast, and I am so excited. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
So where are you coming from today?
I am calling in from Portland, Oregon.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Now, I know everybody who has listened has at least heard of Rock Paper Coin, but could you tell us a bit about it as well as yourself in your own words?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to. So, my longtime business partner turned sister-in-law, Nora Shiels, and we were operating a wedding planning company, noticed this gap in the market where a lot of users were starting to feel like their CRMs and their lead management, software was becoming really complicated. There were so many features and everyone just really wanted something simple that we were talking to. And we at our own company also were feeling the same thing as well. So we went out and did a bunch of market research and we started to build Rock Paper Coin, which is a very simple, easy to use solution to manage your leads, proposals, contracts, and invoices. So we just want to keep it as simple as possible so that everyone can book the couples that they want to book and then get back to their trade, what they love so much.
Well, it's booking those couples that we're going to talk about today. But first, I got to know, I'm nosy. Was she a business partner first or sister-in-law first? Which came first?
A business partner first. So I was working with her for many years and she introduced me to her brother-in-law and we ended up getting married. So we are married to brothers, which has been so fun and special for our relationship.
Yeah, because now it's turned into a family business. Like, how
Yeah.
cool is that?
Yeah, we already worked so well together. And so when we got to add on the family stuff on top of that, it was like, oh, this really works. Like we already know how to work together. We already know that we work in very similar ways. And it just makes it even more fun to work day to day.
Yeah, have you seen that commercial for, I think it's Veronica Beard, and they're both named Veronica Beard because they married brothers. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
love it. We have our own version of that here, but
Yeah.
I could get sidetracked, guys. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Okay, we got it all out of the way in the beginning. So, from what you've learned as you created Rock Paper Coin, is that the booking process is a big it's a big part of our business. Without that, right? You could have all the
Yeah.
inquiries in the world, but without bookings, that's not, you're not going to get anywhere. What does
Yeah.
an event professional need in place even before they start opening up to inquiries?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'm going to talk about what they need, but I want to just back up to give a little backstory of like why I'm qualified and like why I think you should like you as the general audience should be listening to like what I have to say. So at the wedding planning company, I was doing sales for the company. So I was managing a lot of the consults and the inquiries coming in, and I still do that today. So I'm still refining my own sales, kind of like process, if you will. And on top of that, then switching over to Rock Paper Coin, we now are running a sales team as well. It's very different in what we're selling, software versus a service, but the actual bones of the sales structure I've noticed are exactly the same. And that's really where this big light bulb went off for me, thinking, wow, there's so much training out there in the corporate world of like how you sell software, how you should, communicate, what's the follow-up process. But in the wedding industry, it was really lacking until probably like 5 years ago. It started becoming more of a topic of like, it's really important. Instead of needing 500 leads, instead work on your conversion rate, work on your sales tactics. And then from there, you're going to have more inquiries. You don't have to stuff what's called the top of funnel. You don't need as many leads if your conversion rate is really good. So that's really where I like found this passion of, I want to go out. I want to talk about sales. I am very good at sales and I've come to realize that. And so I have a 55% conversion rate. So that means of the couples that I talk with, I book 55% of them. Now, typically in our industry, it's between 25 and 30%. So I have a very strategic approach into what I practice, which is why I'm so excited to always share these tips. So back to the question of what do people need? It seems really, really basic, but I want to just go over it. You need a website that is operable, that all of the links work, that has pricing. Now, you and I can dive a little bit more into that because I know it's a hot topic. And you also have to have social media accounts. That same thing has at least some basic pricing that you can get to, that has your contact information, and that all of the links work. And I see that because many of us, we build our websites and then we go back and we check, oh, maybe I'll update the pictures or maybe I'll update the verbiage. And you're rarely going through and doing an audit of all of the links. When I click on the email address, what does that take me to? When I click on the phone number, what does that take me to? When I click, to my Pinterest, my Instagram, today's couple, what we know about is that they are using social media as a search tool. And so if your website, if your social media, if any of those links are broken, that's just a roadblock for them to get the information they're looking for.
As a social media manager, I see this a lot because I'm using the website as my number one kind of source for inspiration. So I'm seeing stuff that most people normally don't see, especially when you can't proof your own work. It becomes really hard to do. So sometimes
Hmm.
having somebody else go in and look at that,
Yes.
or I know when I'll go to the Knot just to look up other vendors, and I would say
Yeah.
50% have put in their social media URL in wrong. And so
Yep.
that's just
Yeah.
a little tip to check.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really important. It seems so basic. And today everybody's also on their phones. You can find out those statistics through Google Analytics. Hopefully everyone has Google Analytics set up on their site. And you can see what's the usage of mobile versus desktop, because maybe you want to adjust your website to be a little bit more mobile friendly if you have more viewers coming in on the mobile side. But it's important. Send it to your parents, send it to your brothers, sisters, like whatever, friends. Have everyone just run through it and even practice a submission form. I can't tell you actually the amount of times that I have submitted a form on a vendor's website and it not been able to go through. Like that's a pretty big problem.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to, don't just assume you're not getting inquiries. Check, because very often you'll find out something just disconnected with the
Exactly.
contact form. And I'm glad you mentioned Google Analytics, Elizabeth, because actually the episode before yours, going to be episode 152, Emily Foster is on, and she
Oh, good.
mentions how you can set that up. So
Great.
that's
Well,
really
yes.
perfect. So, can you explain now, before we go further, why pricing is important to include?
Yes. So pricing, I'm going to talk about it purely from a sales process. There are many lenses in which we can look at why you should have pricing on your website. My lens today is just simply from sales. If you are having a lot of inquiries come in, but your conversion rate is incredibly low, if it's below 30%, I am going to question you, do you have pricing on your website? Because what pricing is going to do is it's going to give people a range of where you're at and if they can afford you or not. That's typically the first thing that people are going to want to understand is, can I afford this vendor? You don't have to put the exact price point. If for a full service package you charge $10,000, if for whatever, if you're a florist, like you can just also give general kind of like parameters. Budgets start at X, Y, and Z. Packages start at X, Y, and Z. Giving people just a rough indication of what it's going to cost to work with you is going to decrease your inquiries, but it's going to increase your conversion rate. And that's really where we want to be. Inquiries that come in that once you send them their pricing, they no longer are communicating with you. That was a huge waste of your time. So you can't get back that 10, 15 minutes that you spend. Or even worse, like maybe they continue on to learn a little bit more and then they tell you you're out of budget. That's the most frustrating part of the shopping experience for us as the business owners. So being able to put that out in the front and say, this is what it's going to cost to work with me, and or giving a range, something to give the customers an initial like starting point. Obviously, we all have pricing that can vary, and it's okay to state that on the website as well.
Wonderfully put. Very nice. Because I know it is such a hot topic that not everybody understands. And I know what it's like for those who are maybe in an earlier process of your business. You don't want to discount anybody, but the sooner you can get comfortable with whatever that price point is going to be, the better it's going to be for you and your inquiry process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's okay to look at your competitors and see what they're charging, but I always kind of shy away from just because your competitors are charging this amount is what you should be charging. You should be able to stand behind your pricing, whether you have competitors charging that or not. And so just basing your pricing solely off of competitors is not okay, because the market might actually demand something different. So if you are just getting started, it is important to talk with your customers about the price point as well. It's okay to, in your first year, discount a little bit, maybe provide an added service, for free on top of your standard package, those things. But as you become a little bit more into your career by year 2, definitely by year 3, I think you should have your pricing fleshed out and then reevaluate it every year.
Wonderful, wonderful. Before we move more into the booking part, we're talking about the website. Is there anything people may be overlooking or should consider when it comes to the contact form where that inquiry is actually happening?
I am so glad you asked about this. I will visit vendor websites quite frequently. And when there are contact forms where they're asking you to fill out like pages of information before submitting the inquiry, right away, that tells me that this vendor doesn't want to talk to me. You might want all of the information up front, but the couples do not want to sit there and fill out 500, page essays just to start the conversation with a vendor. So that's a huge red flag that there's something off in the sales process and why you need to collect almost 90% of the client information up front. Now, standard things like, sure, guest count, budget, obviously name, email, phone number. I think that can be optional. I think it does help filter out some spam, but some people also don't like asking for it right out of the gate. That's fine. Anything more than that, I think it's okay to leave to a form inside of your sales process. I think the most important thing is you being able to sell your services instead of your website selling your services. Your website is essentially a lead piece of the sales process. You want to lead them to the contact form. The contact form is going to lead them to your inquiry process. If you have hurdles at any one of those points, then you're not getting qualified leads into your process.
I love what you said about the website. I forget the exact term you used, but really it being like a sales support and a lead source. I view social media the same way. Really, yes. They're both being used to make the inquiries you get warmer and warmer, right? Mm-hmm. And once they go to social media and go to your website, that's already getting warm now because they left social media. Then if they go to your website and go to your contact form, that was another step they took. So these are really tools to your process.
Yep. Yeah, it's really important. And this is just a crazy statistic, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's 57% of Gen Z expect a response within 24 hours. And 27% expect a response within 3 hours. And so right there, that's telling you that they want to be able to contact you and just start a conversation. They don't want to fill out these long drawn out forms, and they don't want paragraph and pages of a proposal later. This is like quick interactions. Let's get talking. Let's make sure that this is going to work, and we'll flesh out the details in a little bit.
It's amazing just how much the industry has changed in these past 10 years and kind of switching the generations of who's getting married. Because it was once upon a time where you would make them have to fill out all these certain things and you would do a big pricing brochure. But if you don't adapt and make those changes, it really can make a difference. It's just taking me back to remembering, kind of like when I started with venues, how that was the norm. And now that can hold you back.
Yeah. I've been in this industry for 20 years. So very similarly, putting together these large proposals and making it feel so personalized and so thoughtful and spending all this time and energy, that was really a thing that was booking couples 10, 12 years ago. And that's just not at all today. At the wedding planning company, we don't send a proposal anymore. That has completely been removed from our sales process. And it's just interesting how it's continuing to evolve.
So we have our website, we have our contact form. Now what?
Yes. So everyone's coming in through a funnel. There's one other statistic I would like to share. So you are 21 times more likely to convert a lead if you respond within 5 minutes. So if you think about that just for a minute and what that means, that is not saying that you need an automated sales process. Everyone knows when they receive automated messages. So the sales process of responding to a lead is typically not the time that you want to send some canned email. Now, templates, you want to have something teed up. That's a templated email. You can address their name. You can say whether you're available for their date or not. You can maybe mention something that came in through the inquiry form if you've worked at their venue before, whatever it is. But having that templated email to reply right away, the reasoning behind that statistic is I should say the research behind that, is that if you are the first to book a consult and a first to book a meeting before any other vendor, you become that expert in their eyes. So you've set the bar now here. So anyone else that they're going to meet with, they are in a comparison chart to you. So they could be meeting with 4 others, but it's always that first meeting that is going to be in a column that everyone else gets compared to. And that's really a power play. And that's really where you want to be in the sales process. So by responding in kind of this quote unquote immediate fashion, now 5 minutes, obviously that is not going to be possible in many, many situations in many days, but it's the goal is to just try to respond to a lead as quickly as possible. And you can do that through templated emails, getting in touch with them, having that personalization come across, booking the meeting and making it really easy. So one of the best pieces of advice is to have a calendar link so that the couples can reach out and book a consultation directly with you. Now, some people want to have this on their website. That's fine if that's part of your sales cycle. I personally believe that your calendar should only come once you've qualified them. So once you've received their inquiry, you're available for the date, you know that maybe it's within the budget, they've already seen your pricing X, Y, and Z. If you have your calendar on the website, my worry is that unqualified couples are just going to be booking demos with you or booking time with you. So, having that piece set up in the sales cycle to allow you to have templates, allow you to have a more instant kind of communication, and that's how you're thinking about the inquiry is really important, so that in your email you can have that link to a calendar and put the power back in their hands to select the time and date that works for them.
There's a lot of really important stuff said here, and I have a question and a comment. The first is the question. Okay, so it's almost, maybe this is just from backlash from when I was dating and you don't want to respond to a text too soon, so for anyone else thinking, oh gosh, will I look desperate if I email back right away? Can you just kibosh that for me?
Yep, absolutely. So no, you will not look desperate, because what has happened is that a lot of these inquiries have already checked out your website, already checked out your social media. So they know that you are already one of their qualified vendors that they would like to work with. So you don't need to worry about whether or not you're going to come off as desperate. Instead, what you want to show them is, I'm attentive and I can handle my inbox. I am taking care of business in a way that I'm efficient and I'm responsive.
I love that. I love that, because nobody can handle their inbox. So being the one who can is like, wow.
Yeah. It says a lot. I mean, what does it say if you send an email and you get a response 3 days later? Like that, like to me, I'm like, they're overworked. That sends the wrong message. Like they don't have time for me. They're too booked or they're too busy.
Personal now. You're getting personal.
We all have those days.
Yeah, the calendar link. So I use Calendly, and at some point I had it on my website. Whenever I think I've taken it off, somehow I've realized it hasn't, because I'll get another random appointment. And I got one the other day, and I'm like, "What's this email address?" And it was don't use Calendly@gmail.com, and it was a competitor of Calendly who used my Calendly to book time with me.
That is outrageous. Right there, I'd be like, I'm not working with you.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to sell me something, reach out and do it to me. Like, don't book my time on my calendar. That is clearly for my clients.
So anyone can go in and book your time. So I support Elizabeth's recommendation to have that at the next step.
I feel like today's world, with this next generation that's getting married, there are multiple planning partners, typically in different time zones. There could be the couple and they live in New York, but the parents live in, San Francisco, and then they're getting married in Seattle. Like, we see a lot of that. So that Calendly link is really helpful, because the couples then decide when's the right time and they invite other planning partners to the meeting.
I was wondering if you could do for me, I have people who listen and they're aware of things. They're aware of the term sales funnel, but they don't have one. Can you explain it in a really, easy peasy way for us?
Yes. Okay. So let's think about the letter Y. The letter Y. So at the top of the Y, it's going to look like a V, and that's going to be called essentially like a sales funnel. So that's the top of the funnel, and then it's going to get more narrow until you get to the stick of the Y. And so what a sales funnel is showing is that at the very, very top, at that V, that's where you want the most people coming in. And as you qualify them, they're going to be weeded out until you get to the booking workflow, which is at the bottom of the sales funnel. So the idea is that you want to have a little bit more of a wider funnel. You want to be able to capture more people, which is why, I think having your pricing really helps. Having your website, audited and clickable, and, getting more people into your process is really helpful, because what you don't want to have is so wide of a funnel that you're capturing everybody and you have a really hard time then actually converting and getting them into the sales flow, which is at the bottom of the funnel, bottom of the Y. So having that V at the very top is important. And then having steps set up so that initial email is part of the sales funnel that goes out. Your Calendly link, that is also a part of your sales funnel. Sales funnel and sales process are interchangeable, and I am probably using those two phrases interchangeable as well. So you just want to make sure that the process or the funnel is going to be set up. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do some testing. You're going to say, I'm going to work with whatever these 5 inquiries that are coming in through this process, but maybe for the next 5, I'm going to adjust something just slightly. I'm going to tweak my wording on that initial email that goes out. I'm going to tweak the research that I do before a consultation. We haven't quite talked about then, once you book an appointment, what happens. We'll get to that in a minute, but you'll want to do some testing. It's called A/B testing. If I give client this scenario of A and I give this client of scenario B, which one is more likely to convert? Because you will then find the best sales funnel, the best sales cycle process for your business.
And this is all something that can be done within Rock, Paper, Coin, correct?
Yes, so we're part of that, but we manage leads and inquiries, but I am a firm believer that yes, we have software that can do this, but not everything should really be automated and using software. We are in the business of selling people to people. Our couples are buying from us, yes, for the service that we're providing, but really it's because of the person who's providing that service. They love how talented the florist is. They love how the planner makes them feel at ease. So we have to be a little bit careful in that way. If you are fully automating your process, then you might be losing out on additional sales.
Okay, so with that being said, can we talk about the steps we need to have in our sales funnel to then lead to the booking? And then we'll get to the bookings.
Yeah, right. I know. So how I would recommend, and again, I'm just one gal with an opinion here and a pretty good sales conversion rate. So, everyone needs to figure out what works for them. But after that email comes in, getting the template set up for responding to the email, and then a push for a call. At that point, now, once they've booked a call, it really turns to an internal process. You want to have that information be leading into a document where you can track all of your inquiries coming in. So whether that is software, whether that is a Google Doc, whether you are using Zapier, you have to find out what's right for your business. But essentially you want a place where all of your leads are in one area and you can start to track them. What I like to then do at that point is, once a consultation has been booked, you want to start to do just a tiny bit of research around the couple, entering in their email into, whatever, your Google search, and looking for them on Pinterest. Pinterest is one of those secret little weapons where a lot of people have open boards. So you might find that they've liked a band board and you can be like, oh, great, I also love Taylor Swift or whatever it is. And try to get a little bit of a common ground, because in the consultation, one of the most important pieces and one of the most important things that you can do is just to get them talking. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about the wedding. And I think that's a misconception. At the beginning of the call, you just want them talking. They want to tell their engagement story. That's great. Guess what? I'm going to listen. If they want to talk about Taylor Swift, I'm going to listen. That rapport that you're going to build within those first couple of minutes is really important to putting them at ease and feeling like you're this friend.
This is cracking me up because another reference to the old dating world, somebody had who I was starting to talk to had found my old live journal, and I could tell because they started mentioning references like Grease 2, and I'm like, there's no way you just know this, there's no way. And then found out they had done the Google search and found some of my interests.
Yes, and it's if that was me, I'd be like, oh my gosh, wow, I'm so honored. This person took the time to research and clearly wants my business. Like that, back to the dating thing, like that's not a bad thing. They're showing interest, they're showing the ability, the time that they took to get ready for the consultation. I think those are all really good signs.
Yeah, especially if they liked Grease too. I knew it would always, when I was working at the venues, I would receive the inquiries as well. And on the knot, they would have a photo. And if you saw that it was a Magic Kingdom proposal, it was like, boom, you have your lead in so easy because, you know, how cool to get
Yeah.
engaged to at Disney.
Yep. Yep. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So,
So after, I think after you've kind of prepared yourself for the call, one of the things that's great about Calendly is that they send out all of the reminders for the call. So you don't have to be doing that anymore. That is like one piece of communication that we used to have to own, but now we don't. So everyone gets reminders, everyone gets the links, they hop on the call. You want to get them talking during this consultation process, get them feeling comfortable. Right away after that, first few minutes is kind of like feeling good. You are going to come to part of the sales process called an upfront contract. Now, you're not going to say like, okay, now we're moving into the upfront contract. This is a like thing that you do in the sales process that is what it's called, but the client doesn't know this. So an upfront contract is essentially you're going to tell them what's going to happen and the expected outcomes of the call. And then you're going to ask for an agreement and they're going to say yes. What this does is it already puts them in the yes mindset. And you're going to use a couple of key words in this upfront contract called a sample contract. So what this looks like in practice is, I'm so excited to be meeting with you today, Nina. Thank you so much for your time. I am excited to dive in. What I'm hoping we can do today is in the next 45 minutes, I want to learn everything that you have thought about your wedding so far to date. I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to listen to what you're looking for with, a wedding planner, insert whatever business. And then I want to switch gears and tell you a little bit about our services. And at the end, if everything sounds good, I would love to just send you over a sample contract so you can see everything that we've talked about today. Does that sound good? They're going to say yes.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, it's so easy. So it's just like a couple of sentences to tell them what's going to happen in the next 45 minutes and what you expect at the end, which is I'm going to be sending you a contract. So then you start the call of asking them questions, asking them, about the wedding, take them through kind of the timeline as it relates to your vendor service. And all along, you're just listening for what words they're saying. Like, oh, like, I just really don't want to be overwhelmed, or I'm really nervous about X, Y, and Z and whatever. And picking up on these keywords. You always want to ask them what they're looking for when they're hiring a florist, when they're hiring a planner. What is it that you want out of this service? I think that's really key because they're going to actually sell themselves before you've even said a word about why they want to hire you. For planners, which is what I have sold, they start selling themselves as to why they need a planner. So then I'm like, great, you already know you need a planner. Let's do this, But I then am listening for these keywords and I'm writing them down. And when it's my turn to start talking about the service, I'm using their verbiage. It's not going to be very different from the verbiage I would have used if I was not on a consultation, but little tweaks about, and I know you mentioned that your mom is really excited to decorate all of the table numbers and make them really personalized. So that is something that our team is going to set up so your mom doesn't have to lift a finger. We're going to get all of those table numbers ahead of time. And you start to weave into your services and you put anything that they've said in your services. They're like, well, this seems like a great fit. Like, this is a no-brainer. At the end, when I'm wrapping up, I'm like, so it was just so lovely talking with all of you. I would love to send over that sample contract. It just is going to go over everything that we went over today, and that way you can review it. And if everything looks good from there, we can just move forward with an e-signature to speed up the booking process. And 99.9% of people say yes. Now, here's the funny little piece. It's not a sample contract. It's a real contract with all of their information on it. So they see what that actually looks like.
I love it because that was going to be my next question. Is kind of booking on the spot still a thing? Does that happen? And what you're saying is yes, because yes. I think you detailed it out. You made them comfortable. You told them what to expect. And you kind of gave them a no pressure
Yeah.
delivery of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so low pressure. It's a sample. It's not a commitment, but it is something that they could sign. And then what typically happens is they'll say like, yeah, great, everything looks good. Or maybe they have a question or two, go back and forth. And then the important piece of that is we don't want to be dealing with PDFs and paper checks and cash, and you want to use a online system for the contract and invoice, and that should be a package. You shouldn't have to send a contract through DocuSign and then an invoice through PayPal or QuickBooks. That is disjointed. That means that maybe they'll sign the contract, but then maybe they'll wait on the invoice. So now you're like, oh shoot, is that a booking? Like, I don't know, now I have to do follow-up. Like, no, this is a package. You send a contract, it's attached to the invoice. Once they sign, then they're forced to pay the deposit. Like, gone are the days of like chasing down signatures and payments. So once you get the yes, great. There goes that e-signature. There should be a link in their email. They sign, they pay. That is a booked client. You just saved a bunch of time. You now move them into your onboarding workflow.
If they didn't book at that initial time, how many follow-ups should be built into the sales funnel?
Yes. So I have heard people say 7. I personally think that that's a bit aggressive and a little bit too much time on your end as the vendor. If you have a contract that goes out, I'd say follow up 3 times and have it be 2 days after, then maybe 2 days after, then 3 days after. Following up, yes, if they're continuing to communicate with you, then yes, follow up as many times as needed to get the booking. But if they're just literally not communicating with you, then either they've gone cold, which is fine, and that happens in the sales process, or they are not going to book with you and they don't want to come back and tell you no because they already told you yes in that consultation. So I think that you have to understand what's right for your business. But if you follow up 3 times and no one's converting at all, like you're not hearing back from anyone, then maybe extend it to 5 times. If you're still not hearing, then go back to 3. I just think it can get to be a little bit of a time suck if you're following up 7 times and you have to set all of these reminders.
When you mentioned earlier about responding within 5 minutes, I'm taking us back to the beginning because I just keep
yeah.
Do you have any hacks for that? Whether it's how we structure our work life, our notifications to be alert to get those notifications of a new inquiry?
Yeah, this is going to definitely be trickier on the vendor category. So, florists, for example, they are not working on their computers, where planners, during the week are typically more on their computers. And, same goes for caterers and DJs. There's all these different vendor categories that are going to take people either on or off their computer. But I think the 5 minutes now, yes, if you can respond right away, that's great. But what I think works really well is doing time blocking. So on your calendar, you want to block out time where you're actually going through and clearing out your inbox. So your inbox should be, I'm going to go on a tiny bit of a rant here because I also love talking about email, owning your email, but your inbox should be an active to-do list. So any project that you're still working on should be your email. But if you can't respond to something within 5 minutes, then it stays in your inbox. Otherwise, the idea is that when you have a time block for email, you are responding to emails as fast as possible. And you might think, well, that's not very much time. Like, this email is going to actually need a little bit more thought process. You then take that email title and you put it on your calendar. If something is going to need more than 5, maybe 10 minutes, block it on your calendar to reply, but you still reply immediately and you still say, got your email, thanks so much. I'm going to be working on it later this afternoon. I'll get back to you by tomorrow. Getting into that practice of responding immediately to emails when you're in your email is going to be really helpful. When you see an inquiry come in, you click reply, you have your template, you fill in the parts that are red, and you hit send, you move on to the next one. Instead of these inquiries coming in and being like, oh, okay, I just got a new inquiry, I've got to set aside time. No. Like, you got to get a different mindset into what it's going to take to respond.
Do you have a course on this? Because I think I need it.
I do. I talk about email management. I've actually taken a couple of courses about email management because probably now 7 years ago, I was emailing with my brother at like 2 a.m. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just like cannot get to the bottom of my email. And the next day he was like, well, you know that there's like public speakers out there and there's like courses that you can take about email management. I was like, no. So then he sent me a few. He works for a corporate company, so he had access to all of that. And I was like, wait, why isn't this a thing in our industry? Why don't we have these tips and tricks available to us?
Amazing. It's always the brothers. I have one as well, and he's always the one to kind of drop the obvious bomb. Like, well, you know, you can just do this,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Well, I think it's just so easy. This industry, we're all creatives. So inherently, practices are not going to be the most efficient because what we want to do is our trade. We want to bake cakes. We want to create floral arrangements. We want to be planning on site. I don't want to be tied to my email. I don't want to be locked into my computer. So then sometimes I'm not taking the time to make sure I'm as efficient as I could be. So someone from the outside is like, why are you doing it this way? That's not how we do it. Like, we're like, oh, okay, great.
was there anything we missed between the contact form into booking process?
Oh, that is a good question. Anything that we missed? Oh, maybe we could talk about just proposals and forms.
Yeah, that's
So
excellent.
I feel like there are a handful of like categories in the wedding industry that really want to collect information upfront through like forms of maybe it's like DJs or photographers and proposals. I actually see quite a few photographers sending out proposals and planners sending out proposals and florists. And I think these are all good and well, but they're just placed in the wrong part of your booking and sales process. So instead of them putting a head, which I see ahead of maybe consultations or ahead of setting up time to meet, with the clients, you actually want to put them after they've booked, which sounds really, really crazy. But those things, especially proposals, take us as the business owners so much time and energy. And what you can instead have is a proposal that it's showing what it's like to work with me as that vendor. It's a generic proposal. So I'm not having to redrop in flowers. I'm not having to redrop in their colors or, their themes. And instead it's just like, here's some of my best work. Here's what you can expect. And this is why you should book with me. That's okay to send ahead of time. But anything that's personalized, that needs to come after they've already signed a contract because that is your time and money.
So important. I think that's really wise because once again, we become used to doing something a certain way that it can be really hard to break the habit of, okay, we don't have to do that at this stage anymore.
Yeah. And if somebody won't book you because you won't give them a proposal, there's two things. You can say, okay, great. Like they clearly are not going to trust me in this process. So like maybe they're not the right fit for me. Or you can say, no problem. I'm going to charge a $500, deposit. And that'll just go towards your booking with, fee when you work with me. But that's okay. Like we don't necessarily always think about how our time is money because it's just us putting together these proposals. But if everybody asked for a proposal and then you only booked 30% of those, that's a lot of money that just went out the door.
Mm-hmm. How much of that, I guess it's more of a package than a proposal, right? But how much of that can be on the website?
Yeah. I mean, anything that's like package based, I would 100% say put it on the website. But if you're doing a proposal because you're a designer or a florist and you are going to show like X amount of boutonnieres or X amount of bouquets, like that just needs to come after the booking process. And you can just give general pricing. Typically my boutonnieres range from X to Y. And that can all just be very standardized and just give people a general sense of what it's going to be like to work with you.
My favorite tip you gave throughout this was mapping out the call and mapping out, that you were going to do X, Y, and Z and then send, a contract or sample contract at the end of it. Do you have any other tips for increasing that conversion rate?
Yes. So maybe it's important to actually talk about what is a conversion rate, just to go real basic for a second. So a conversion rate is at the end of the year at 2024, you want to be able to tally how many inquiries came in and then how many bookings you had. And you're going to divide the number of bookings by the number of inquiries, and that's your conversion rate. So that's going to be your percentage. You'll calculate that into a percentage. So if you have a really, really low conversion rates, then something is amiss. Like you should, at a minimum, be able to book 30%. Like that is kind of industry average. So something is wrong if you're not doing that. Maybe you're getting in too many inquiries. Maybe your sales process is a little, funky. So you can then re-look at some of them. Now, you can overhaul everything. Sure. I think that's maybe not the best approach. Instead, start to focus on, okay, I'm going to actually make all of these tweaks to my website, and I'm going to see then what for Q1 that does to my inquiry, my conversion rate. Then in Q2, I'm going to make these 3 tweaks, and I'm going to see what my conversion rate is. So making these small adjusted tweaks, because if you overhauled everything, maybe everything wasn't broken. Maybe it was just one thing, but you'll never know because you overhauled everything. So making slow adjustments to that process is going to be really important, and being able to track all of that data as well.
If someone were using a system like rock, paper, coin, would that kind of be automated for them to see, or to see at least? Because for me, if it's not automated, I don't know it. I couldn't even tell you my conversion rate or the amount of, it's horrible what I'm saying. And I'm saying it, okay? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know the numbers.
Yeah. And I don't think that's wrong. I think that this is typically, again, I keep talking about we're this creative industry, but like conversion rates are very standard in other industries. But just because we're in this creative field, we sometimes feel like business practices don't necessarily apply. But I'm here to tell you that when it comes to sales, they do apply. And it's really important, because at the end of the day, if you can't close a booking, you don't have a business. So you have to understand how to sell, even if you don't want to. Like that is going to be the key for survival and growing your book of business. I think in terms of like software and with rock, paper, coin, we built it based off of our experience and now all of our customers' experiences. So we do not have 100% automation offered. And that's very much on purpose and strategic, because we want our customers to have the biggest book of business possible. So we're going to aid them in their sales process so that they're having a higher conversion rate than maybe if somebody was at full automation.
Fantastic. Elizabeth, you've really been very forthcoming with giving us a lot of just tons of education and value, and I really appreciate it. I have to ask again, was there anything we missed?
No, I'm not. I think I will just put it out there that I love talking about this topic. We also, as a community at Rock, Paper, Coin, are very passionate just about uplifting this industry in general. So please, like, if anybody has any questions, like, don't hesitate to reach out to me, to the team. You can DM us over Instagram. You can email us. Like, we want to be available. Even if you're not on Rock, Paper, Coin, we're all about just like elevating everybody to have the best business possible.
Yes. Where can everybody find you?
Yes. So Instagram is great at Rock, Paper, Coin. We do have a Facebook page, and then emails it's just my first name, Elizabeth at Rock, Paper, Coin, or hello at Rock, Paper, Coin. We're monitoring those inboxes. And then if you do want to try it out, I think we have a code with Nina that's exciting, and it's going to give 50% off. So the code is I do weddings, and I do wedding, just not plural. And I think, Nina, I can email that to you.
Yeah,
with a
we'll
link.
have it in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Great.
We're so
Yeah.
appreciative of that.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any upcoming speaking events? I figured I would ask in case we can put it on our
Ooh.
radars.
That is good. We always speak at Wedding MBA, so we're always there. We
Great.
typically are talking more about like tech hacks, tech automation. So not necessarily in the sales process, but for your business in general. And then, yeah, we're typically doing any of the summits. We'll be there. Nor and myself, we try to kind of be here, there, and everywhere. So hopefully we'll come across more of you all, and you can come say hi.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much for being here, Elizabeth. And thank you everybody who listened to us here at the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast.
Thank you.